all these professors that when they have your players in class, they have no problem giving them a D or an F. Okay, if they don't learn. But then they come to your game, and if one player doesn't know a play, all of a sudden they say you're a terrible coach. But when my players got a C, D, or F in your class, you're a great teacher. They're bad students. They flip it though when now they come to see me play. They say, bad coach, good players. And so I always say every player that you have, high school, college, or pro, has to get an A in your class. That's coaching.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by former NBA assistant coach and the founder of Coaching You, Brendan Suhr. Coach Suhr coached in college and the NBA from 1973 to 2020. He helped lead the Detroit Pistons to 2 NBA championships in 1989 and 1990. He was also the head scout for the gold medal United States Dream Team at the 1992 Barcelona Olympic Games, and he was an assistant coach for 2 NBA All-Star Games. He was named CBA Coach of the Year in 1996. 15 years ago, Coach Suhr also founded Coaching You, a coaching, leadership, and learning company that focuses on individual and team development. If you'd like to learn more, go to coachingyouplus.com. Coach Suhr is also a consultant to the NBA Basketball Players Association, serving to help current and retired players in the areas of coaching and leadership. Additionally, he authored the book Chuck Daly Coaching You. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you so much for giving up your time. Before we kind of came on, we were talking about your schedule and just how it just never ends and all the amazing opportunities that you have to give up your time to talk to me, just a small coach in Texas. I really appreciate it.
There is no such thing, Matt, as a small coach because coaching is the most honorable profession I know. As you know quite well, the kids you have an opportunity to influence, just like a teacher. Parents have the same opportunity. Most of them don't take advantage of it. But coaches are the ones that when you look back on it, those are my most cherished memories of coaching is not the championships, not the rings. It's the relationships that I've had. So if you say, well, I'm just a high school coach, the most influential person in my life was my high school coach, UB Brown. And that's the reason I became a coach, because I wanted to be like him, knowing I could never be like him. Not good nearly as he was that influential in that I wanted to help kids. Wow. So I have such honor for high school coaches, for college coaches, but more for the high school guy, because you get him at this precious age now. When I was in high school, I think I was a pretty nice kid, but now, you're juggling so much now, even at a Christian school, I always say there's a devil on every kid's shoulder there too, right?
Oh yeah. Sin is everywhere, and yes. So it's not that we're immune to it here at Grapevine Faith. And you're right on the money with that. I was trying to think, looking at your resume, the places you've been to, the over 50 years that you've coached. Like what do we have in common? And at the end of the day, you're right on the money. It's the relationships. Doesn't matter if it's high school, college, or NBA. It's that time we get to spend with other people, and the idea that we get to be a part of their journey that I think I have in common with you.
Coaching is about taking players where they can't take themselves. The same role as a parent. When you get those little babies, and then as they're growing up, your job is to help them get where they couldn't go themselves without your guidance and love and care. And so that's kind of what I think coaching is. And when I get it, now that I have this brand of Coaching You for 16 years that I started with my dear friend Kevin Eastman. When we started, we just wanted to have one little clinic in Vegas. We thought we could really help some college coaches. That was the whole purpose, as Kevin might have told you. And the next thing you know, we found that there was such a need for it. And now more than ever, just like the church is needed more than ever before, religion, um, I think faith is needed. Now coaching is needed. And right now, even though we have a ton of them, we can be better.
Mm.
And that's at every level, uh, and everywhere in the world. I mean, the greatest need for my business, coaching you, is everywhere outside the US. People in the US need it. They just think they don't.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, but we're dealing with everywhere. I've been to China 12 times, the Middle East, Africa, Europe, Australia. I mean, everywhere we go, it's a worldwide language. And now when I talk about coaching, when people say, "Oh, everyone wants the microwave way to how to coach," and I tell them it's about love.
Mm.
And boy, a lot of coaches push back. They don't want to hear that. They think it's some damn X and O's or something. It's not. It's not. It's about loving your players, about loving your sport that you're playing, loving teaching, and and I just think that's the missing thing is that you have to love the players just like you love your own children if you're going to get them to perform, not screaming and yelling at them. It's just the opposite. To get people to perform, in any if you were an actor or a singer, I don't recommend that you scream and yell and curse at the superstar, singer, performer. Nurture them, coach them, encourage them, inspire them, and that's what coaching is.
Mm. I think it comes back to, and you hear this quite a bit, but knowing your why. Like, why are you starting with this? Like sometimes when I talk with players and it's a Saturday morning practice and they maybe just like the game, they don't love it or live it. They like it, which is enough.
Yeah.
And they're struggling to be at a Saturday practice. A great activity is to ask them to remember why they started playing in the first place. And most of the time, it's if you go back far enough, it was just so much fun to get to put that ball in that round hoop. And then along the way, it became serious, and parents and coaches, made it even more, gave it more pressure. But on the coaching side, remembering what our why is and why we started, it most likely wasn't for the paycheck getting going. It was because we loved the game and we loved what it could do in someone's life and how we could play a part in that.
One of the things I do every season, every year, but also at every clinic when I get a chance to do a long workshop or whatever is I ask them, why are you coaching?
Hmm.
And it's the most important thing. You have to understand your why. And I've been on it where I was one of the lowest paid D1 coaches when I started to the highest paid NBA coach of all time when I was rolling with the Pistons and stuff. And I was the same person. I was the same
Hmm.
coach. I had better players, in the NBA, but unfortunately, I wasn't better for them. But I mean, it's all about. It has nothing to do with money, and it has to do with why you want to do this. And then I always try to get them to say, how do you think the kids like playing for you? It's not about you. It's about them. And I
Wow.
think,
Yeah.
so I asked them a series of questions, and I think it's one of the things, but that I think is so important. But the why is the most important thing. And for players, I'm just happy that they're not staying in the house and being on a computer all damn day. I mean, I'm happy that they go out and play any sport.
Yeah.
They want to be part of something. But when coaches, when I do my workshops and seminars for NBA teams, college teams, NFL, or college football teams. One of the biggest things that we talk about for them, is are you coachable? And everyone always tells me they're coachable. No one has ever told me they're not. I'm talking like 7,000 people. And the second question I ask them is, may I be truthful with you, coaching you? And they
Mm.
always say yes. And that now gives me a license, a permission slip to now coach them, what I call hard. be demanding, but not I always say, I love Greg Popovich's quote of, be demanding, but not demeaning, right?
Mhm.
And I have no problem with you coaching a player hard as long as you don't cross that line. And I see too many coaches, because why is that they get so upset when a kid doesn't perform, their team doesn't perform, that they take it as a personal thing. And my thing is, if your team doesn't perform, you need to do a better job teaching. It's not their fault. But when I do these programs, I'm asked sometimes by the head coach, whether it's a football head coach or basketball head coach, he'll say, "What do you miss most about not having one team to coach?" And I said, I miss being part of a team,
Yeah.
because there is nothing in this world better than being part of a team, part of a family, part of a congregation, et cetera, where you're part of a group of all people with the same intentions, and that's what you miss. But my feeling, and I feel like it's almost a spiritual calling, is that the last several years I struggled with, I'm only coaching 12 players. There's so many more I need to touch. And so I'm on this mission to coach hundreds of thousands of people and to impact, millions of people. And it's going to happen. And that's one of the things that I want to do. But I can't do it if I'm focused on one group.
Heard this of you in the past is that, you're a coach of coaches. Like,
Mhm.
so by doing that, you indirectly, you hit their team. And then it's the compound effect, is that you hit one of them and then one of their players becomes a coach one day and you've impacted them. When you talked about coachability, it made me think about things that we demand of our players, but that sometimes we struggle with ourselves. And I want my players to be coachable. And then the moment as a coach that I'm asked to do the same thing, I go back to this when I was directing for PGC years ago. I played in college and I'd been coaching in high school for a few years, and thought that I knew what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, one of the guys, the higher ups, gives me 3 pages of notes from my session. And coach, this like feeling of, how dare you give me feedback, give me notes, like just tell me that I did a great job and move on. And so my point is we want our players to be coachable, but then we need guys like you. We need materials out there that continue to challenge us, and we need to stay coachable.
One of the things I talked to Mano Watsa today, actually,
That's
he's a
the
dear
that's
friend
the
of
guy.
mine.
That's the guy that
He's a dear friend, and,
yeah,
and
he's
we're going to
awesome.
get together in 2 days in Phoenix. But one of the things that, you know, uh, that's why when I do something with a team, I always ask the head coach first and all of
Mm,
his assistants, "Are you coachable? And can I be truthful with you?" Then I go to his players. So they can't believe how I could be with them for 20, 30 minutes, and all of a sudden their players are listening to me more than they were them,
mm,
because all I did is just ask them 2 questions. But one of the things that you have to do is you have to have credibility, you have to have competency, and then the players got to be able to see that you have incredible love for them and that you care for them. And you do that, and all those beautiful words like trust, and they all fit together, but it all is embodied by love first. And so, to me, it's natural, but I believe I can teach that to others, and I've had success with it. But not for myself, but for them, so they can be more effective with their kids. And I see it every year with different teams I'm working with, and I get such a kick out of it. And I just think that there's nothing better than to take a group that in the start of the season they're just not very good, and then by the end of the year they've really turned into a team. That, to me, there's nothing better. It's priceless to me. And when you watch the NCAA tournament, and you'd see the teams that lose, and they talk about the coaches.
Yeah.
Coach, what'd you say to your team in the locker room? And now, if you watch, all the good ones are saying, "I told them I loved them." You can't give a better message.
Yeah. And I love seeing the vulnerability too that they show. Like they
Yeah,
get a little bit choked up, they get a
they
little bit
do.
teary, and it's you can't. I mean, I guess you could fake that, but to me, when you have that level of love and care for your players, you don't want it to end, and not because you want to keep winning for success or trophies or championships, but you just want to be able to coach them the next day, be around
Hmm.
them in the locker room the next day. That just comes through.
Yeah, Danny Hurley the other day, who I've known since literally his dad and I are friends from New Jersey. And I've known Danny and Bobby, his brother, since they were babies. And to watch him, and he's a tough guy, to say he was walking around crying before their,
Yeah.
game the other day. I thought that was fabulous because that is what it's all about. Everyone thinks the scoreboard is what it's about. It's not the scoreboard. It's did you do the best you could with the group that you had? It's not winning and losing is our scoreboard, but geez, that's not what we should be judged by. You know,
Yes, sir.
that's
You mentioned a second ago credibility and then being competent and then having a level of care. And I was trying to think of like if you could look at a coach as a pie chart, you got to have all three of those pieces. If you have one, but not like let's say a high level of care, but you don't know what you're doing. Your players will feel that and they'll maybe lose a little bit of trust in what you say. If you are credible and you're competent, you know your X's and O's, but they don't believe you care in them, care
yeah.
about them. They won't invest fully in you. Coach, how do you get all three?
Well, there's actually about nine. There's about nine of them, but I think nowadays to be a coach, assistant coach, head coach, you have to be a leader. You have to be a person that's going to lead men or women, and that's by being a model for doing the right thing. And then on and leaders. I've studied leadership forever because I think it's one of the biggest things we're missing in our country in general. The great author John Maxwell and I spent a day together in
Wow.
August in Orlando, and he said, Brendan, he's 77 years old. He's just one of the most amazing humans on this earth. And he said, Brendan, I want you to help me become a better coach. I said, me help you? And he says, I have in my John Maxwell team, I have 55,000 coaches, but we need to be better. Help me, share with me some things that we can make them better. Well, first of all, when I got up off the floor,
Yeah, I
because
was going to say, what you,
I'm
what a
like,
moment right there.
I
Coach,
mean,
were you prepared?
no, not the least bit. I thought I was going to go in and listen to him talk, shake his hand, and kiss his ring, and the whole deal, man. And it was like this. I was flabbergasted,
Wow.
and then he handed me a Bible that he had, not a Trump Bible, but his Bible that he had just put with a combination of all of his leadership stuff mixed in with the Bible. It's one of my most prized possessions I have.
Wow.
It is with an autograph in there, to the world's greatest coach. Oh my Lord. I said, oh Lord. I said, next to Jesus. He said, yeah, we're not counting him.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah. And, but I think the thing is that, you know, Conzo Martin played for me, former coach of Missouri, and now he's going to be the coach of Missouri State. And Conzo played for me. And he said to me, when I got him into coaching, and he after he finished playing, and he said to me, and I went up in at Missouri, I did 3 days with his team to help him, get started. And he said to me, Coach, you're the best foot washer I've ever known. I said, what? I'm the what? I had no clue because I grew up Catholic and we
uh,
didn't study the Bible, man. they had their own little book, a secret book, that, oh
Yeah.
my God, so I'm like going, I was half upset, but I knew Zoe would love me. So I said, what do you mean? He says, and he started telling me the story about Jesus at the Last Supper
Servant leadership. Yeah.
and about washing the feet of all those disciples that had turned on him.
Mm.
Right? All
Mm.
those assistant coaches that had turned on the head coach. And he said, Coach, you're the best foot washer I've ever known. I went, oh Lord. And I actually had to have a couple of friends like John Gordon and them tell me what all that meant, who really study scripture and stuff. And I said, it's one of the proudest moments I've ever had as a coach.
That's incredible. And you're right on the money too, with Jesus being one of the greatest leaders and team builders of all
Mm-hmm.
time, because those 12 people who were not highly educated and came from all different types of backgrounds led the largest movement that the world's ever seen. And it started from 12. And talk within that team of 12, small group leaders, a group of 3 that he could kind of his own leadership team that he could bring a little bit closer, and that he trained up in a different way. For like, it is really a fascinating study, and a really cool direction that we are able to talk about there.
So one of the things that in studying leadership that I found now, because there's how many books in Barnes and Noble or any of the stores would have on
It's
leadership,
its own section. Yeah.
and then that's the new ones, right?
Yeah.
And what I found is it comes down to one word nowadays: courage. Most people in leadership positions do not have courage. Think about it. Think about people you work with. Think about administrators you might work with, athletic directors, head coaches. Man, oh man. And I can almost point out when I go and visit a school, when I go and visit an NFL or NBA team, and I can almost tell, I don't care what position or how much money you make, I can tell by the way they run if they have courage.
Is it the fear of letting people down, the fear of upsetting people, that is maybe holding back them from being more courageous?
Well, I mean, nowadays in college, coaches are afraid to have courage because they're afraid the kid might put his name in the darn portal. Well, I put my name in the portal if you have no courage. If you don't, my thing is, the reason I ask you, are you coachable and can I be truthful, is because kids nowadays, when you coach them, they think you're being critical of them. They think you're criticizing them. And it's just the opposite. That's why when I say to them, are you coachable and can I be truthful with you? My thing is, now I owe it to you to help you get better by telling you the truth. And you told me that you want this. It's like going to college or high school and saying, I want to learn, but then all of a sudden when you get a homework assignment or you have to read something, oh man, this is too much. Why are you giving my kid homework? We're here to learn. And so it's the same thing. You want me to coach you. You want me to help you get better. So I've now flipped it and tell the players at the places I'm doing a program, a seminar, I tell them right in front of their coaching staff, demand that they coach you. Demand and be pissed off and put your name in the portal if they don't coach you. So I put it right on them to coach you. But I tell them, that's what you need to do. When Kevin Garnett went with Doc Rivers with the Celtics, as Kevin's told you that story, he demanded that Doc coach him. And Doc played for me. I drafted Doc. And he was such a pushback against coaching. Now he said, I told him, I said, Doc, you could be a really good coach. And he told me to go F myself, quote unquote. I have too much respect to use his language now. And he said, and I said, he said, Brendan, that's the last thing on earth I'll do. And this is Doc's 25th year in coaching, second to Popovich in the NBA, but long tenure, 25 straight years.
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah.
The guy that never wanted to have anything to do with coaching is now, and one
of
the highest paid people.
You saw it. You saw it.
I saw that he had charisma. I thought he had love. I knew he had the ability to connect to people. And that's all those things you need. I knew he had credibility because he played for 13 years.
And it goes back to what you said at the very beginning about the role that coaches can play in actually changing the trajectory of a young person's life. And that was even as a man, an NBA player at that time. But we have that responsibility that when we see attributes in our players, that and when we see how they could cultivate that into something that helps others. I mean, we got to speak that truth, speak that life into them.
Yeah, and one of the things in coaching you have to do, some people think it's as important as anything, is you have to learn how to evaluate the talent on your team, evaluate how your team's playing. Evaluation is a huge part of it. Evaluate what's missing from your team. What do I need to work on? What do I need to practice more? And and so part of my job is as a talent scout, someone that's been an NBA GM as well, I have to find talent and then I have to nurture it and coach it. And I would tell people all the time that I worked with and stuff. I told Joe Dumars when I had Joe, I said, Joe, I said, uh, he's a brilliant guy. Uh, I always tease him. He's the smartest person ever to went to McNeese State, the smartest guy ever from Natchitoches, Louisiana. But he's so bright, so brilliant. And I said to him, "You shouldn't be a coach." He said, "I want nothing to do with it." But I said, "You are one of the best leaders I've ever coached because Joe was not a leader by voice.
Hmm.
That was Isaiah Lambier, those guys, man. They were out there, man. They were out there. They were leading the band. Joe led by example. He did the right thing every day, constantly.
Hmm.
And that's why he's the second highest ranking person in the NBA to Adam Silver, because and the number one person in basketball because the players respect him so much. Can you imagine? It would be like being in a cartel in Mexico. That was the Pistons. That was the bad boys, right? And this guy, they named an NBA Sportsmanship Award after. I mean, that's how incredible he was. That this is the most notorious, baddest ass team ever to play in the NBA. People were frightened to death of it. And this guy, who was the best defensive player in the league, this guy, he was the guy that could stop Jordan. He would
Hmm.
guard every team's best player, but he was the NBA sportsmanship winner. That tells you a lot about that guy.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
I think you're right on the money with evaluation, and we need to be constantly doing that ourselves with our staff. I wrote down next to that is blind spots. As a coach, how do we recognize blind spots that we might have about players on our team, style of play, direction, momentum, all of those things that happen throughout a year?
Good question. I think a lot of it has to do with how good your staff is.
Hmm.
Okay.
Can they tell you the truth? Do they feel like they can tell you the
But
truth?
and that you encourage it.
Yeah.
And like I do some stuff for some very high level CEOs, just like my friend Kevin Eastman does. And one of the things that I do is same thing. I said, do you want to really become a better leader? Do you really do that? And if you do, I can help you. If you don't, just give me the money now and I'll say we did what you wanted me to do and I'll give you an A in the class if that's what you want. There is no class, but if
Yeah.
that's what you want, if you want me to massage you and stuff like that, I'll do it. But you're not going to be any better. And so, you have to have a growth mindset. And as a coach, if you have a fixed mindset, which many, many, many coaches do, they know everything. They got all the answers. They when they lose a game, it's not because of them, it's because of the players, etc. But there is no coach in America, I'm exaggerating just for our poetic license that we have right now, that knows more basketball than I do right now. There's no one. I don't care if you're in the Final Four. I don't care if you have if you're NBA best team. Doesn't matter. because that's all I do all day is I study. That's all I do. I know every offense that's being run in college and pro basketball. I study them. I can teach them. I have this mindset that, oh sure, I was with the dream team, the original dream team. I was with when, 5 times our teams were the best team in the world. That has nothing to do with that's where it was then. How about now? And so that's why I'm out there teaching people all over the world. I have to teach them the latest trends and teachings in the game, not what I did 30 years ago,
Mm.
25 years ago, 10 years ago. It's not important. It's important right now. How do I help them? Well, I have to get superior knowledge. The coach, it doesn't matter that most of my career I played man to man, but I also did deep dive into, learning about zones and about presses and heck, we invented the Jordan rules, and stuff, which my girl, I can't mention her name because I lived there. This should have been used last night against Cleveland Clark, but anyway, but so every day I got to keep getting better. Not no one's there's no one that's watching me get better. I love it. I want to
Mm.
keep learning. But and so as I better surround myself with not my friends as on my coaching staff, but it'd be nice if they became my friends, but people to fill in my
Yeah,
gaps.
they can be
That's what
both. Yeah.
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 I would think that I was one of Chuck Daly's one of the best friends, et
Mm.
cetera. But that's not important as much as I'm there to serve them. Assistant coaches need to get, it's not my team. My
Mm.
job is to assist the head coach. How do I help him become better?
Mm.
It's very servant leadership. So you have to learn, Matt, in coaching to coach what I call up. Every one of us has a boss. You got a boss.
Yeah.
I have a boss. You got to learn to coach up. You got to be able to coach. If you're an assistant coach, you got to be able to coach sideways. Those are your fellow assistants. And you got to be able to coach down if you're the head coach to your assistants. And as an assistant coach, I got to be able to coach down to my players. So, I'm coaching up sometimes to my owner in the NBA, my general manager. In college, it's my athletic director or someone that's the president of the university or whoever. And it's your principal and AD, et cetera.
Yeah.
But every one of us, but you better not be able to just say, I can coach players. You better be able to coach your staff. You better be able to coach your players. You better be able to coach your administrators, people that you work for.
And at the high school level, the other stakeholder that's really important, the parents. You
Oh,
better find a way to pull them into the vision, the culture of your program, or you can try and trust the teenager to send the correct message home, and that's dangerous.
well, no, the teenager might, but they come to the game and they think they really know what they're talking about, the parent.
Mm.
They don't know squat. All they know is Johnny's number 11, and that's my boy. And he hasn't
And he
shot the
works
ball.
so hard. He
And
works so
well, it
hard.
doesn't matter if he does. No, he might not work hard,
I know.
but he paid money to go to school there.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
think it's basketball camp where he gets to play half the games, because you paid equal tuition,
Yeah.
and that's unfortunately, as I always say in youth sports, parents screw it up.
Mm.
In college, parents screw it up a little bit. Now agents are screwing it up, and in the NBA, agents screw it up. You don't deal with parents, The players are the least of the problems,
Mm.
my opinion.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about your growth mindset that you have. I would love one of my favorite parts of getting to do this is to learn the daily habits of outstanding coaches and leaders. Because you and I get the same amount of seconds every day, but we have to use them the right way or in a way that helps us grow. So, what are some of those daily habits that set you up for success?
Yeah, my wife would challenge me whether there's success or not, but I naturally rise early. I got 3 dogs here that are very jealous of me being on this Zoom right now, and so one of the things that I try to do is I try to read, listen to podcasts, and then I have a circle of friends and influencers that I talk to every day. And I get to bounce things off them, and they'll tell me about things that they think are a problem in the game and stuff like that to keep me current on some ideas. They tell me about problems that are on their team, so many times off the court problems, which are sometimes the biggest problems in coaching are things not basketball wise, but they're things off the court. And it doesn't matter if they're high school, college, or pro. New team, same problems, frankly,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but and so then I'm always working every day. I work on new business, and so we're doing clinics. We are partners in a lot of clinics around the country and overseas, and then constantly talking and evaluating people that I think would be good speakers at our events. We run a couple of big events in Vegas in July during the NBA Summer League, so it's a constant thing of figuring out who I want to have that year, which 12, 14 coaches I want, because our biggest thing is we have an app now that goes all over the world that is incredibly inexpensive, that basically has every clinic that we do and our partners in. So it's like 100 new speakers a year on this thing. And so what we're trying to do is, for $9.99 a month or $99 a year, you can get Coaching You Plus, and you can get literally, I think it's almost 400 different speakers are on there. And I'm talking the best of the best. And that's really cool, and so and I'm really big on the women's game. I love the women's game, so I'm trying to figure out ways to do things with them, because they have some really excellent coaches there, but we need more good coaches, and the big thing is, now, Matt, is a lot of people don't go to clinics. They're too expensive. Their schools don't give them the funds to do it. So we figured out a couple of years ago that this might be the best way to, again, trying to influence millions, that if we had this available anywhere in the world, you can do it on your phone, your iPad, or you're on your computer. It's been unbelievable, the people that we've reached. And when we partner with different groups, different state associations, we offer the most insane discount, like 70%. If they're a member of the Florida Coaches Association or the Alabama Coaches Association, just because we want their membership to increase. In Texas, you don't have that problem. Texas has a monstrous membership. Ohio, Michigan, but then there's other states that have Florida had 23 million population, but yet one of the smallest coaching associations. So we're trying to grow that. So stuff like that's of interest to me, and stuff. So, but that's an everyday thing. I was on the phone with 4 head coaches today, Power 5 guys, trying to see things for the summer for them and stuff. 2 NBA coaches. Now the NBA will wind down in 2 weeks. The 14 guys that aren't in, or 10 people that aren't in the playoffs, I'll see if any of those are people that I want to have in Vegas and stuff. And then as they get eliminated from the playoffs, then we'll be inviting other ones there. So, but it's all about relationships. I can't call them up, and 99% of the coaches that come and speak at my events now, they won't take a fee from me because they make college coaches are making a ton of money, and the pro coaches, it's astronomical. I was born way too early. If I was in the NBA now, Chuck Daly was in the NBA. Oh Lord, Eric Spoelstra, one of my dearest friends, when I started coaching the NBA, he was my ball boy in Portland. When we would go and play in Portland, Eric was my ball boy, and so that's how deep the relationships are, and his daddy was the president when Chuck and I were in New Jersey. His dad was the president of the Nets. So, and Eric was just coming out of the University of Portland. So, we have some fabulous coaches in this league, but they really want to help people. That's what I'm encouraged by. They really want to teach. That's what's beautiful about it.
It's so much fun to kind of hear you talk about the different circles that you're a part of, the experiences that you've had. And I would imagine there's people, and the reason I would imagine there's other people that think this way is because that thought popped in my head is like, man, like how do you get to where, you're sitting where you are and you have these people that you get to have these conversations with, but it goes back to almost kind of how we started this talk. You mentioned relationships, yes, but there is something, in my opinion, special about you, how you view the game, but more importantly, how you deal with people. Because if you were just a good coach, maybe you don't have the reach that you have. And like, think about your why. Your why wasn't just to have the biggest clinic; it's to reach the most people. I mean, that's why you get to be where you are is and have the relationships you have is because of the person you are. I don't think we can't forget that, that it's about who we are individually as people, not just what we know about the game.
UB Brown was my high school coach in New Jersey growing up. And he was the greatest clinician I ever heard in basketball. I mean, there was no better teacher in the world than UB Brown. And you can still see at 90 years of age, every time he's on TV and ESPN, it's a clinic.
Yeah.
And when he asked me at 27 to be his assistant with the Atlanta Hawks, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I didn't know a damn thing about the NBA. And I'm at the first practice. Mike Fratello's the other assistant. We only had two assistants. I have no idea what I'm doing. And UB, I think, can see how fearful I am as we're ready to start practice. And he walks over to me and he says, and only UB can say it, "Hey, listen, I'm going to give you some advice. Do not try to be me. Be yourself.
Mm.
And you'll be fine." And it's the best advice I've ever had in coaching. I can't be UB. I can't be Bob Knight, who I also grew up in that era, went to his camps. I couldn't be John Wooden. You have to be yourself.
Mm.
And that's a really important thing for coaches. If you try to be someone else, I remember Rick Pitino and I were contemporaries growing up together, went to Five-Star Camp as campers together, and then we ended up coaching at Five-Star and before we got in college at like 21 years of age each. And and I remember, you know, I Chuck Daly and I were running a basketball camp in Detroit during our Piston years, and I had hired this high school coach, actually a women's high school coach in Birmingham, Michigan. And I said, and he's a young guy, and he says, I said, he says, "You got to come see my team play in the summer." I said, "Really? I really don't." I said, but he said, "Everything I do is like Rick Pitino," and Rick was at Kentucky, and I'm saying to myself, Rick presses full court. He's shooting threes way ahead of the time. So anyway, I go and see the guy play, and he loses by 55 points. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Doing just what Pitino does." I said, "No, he wins every game." I said, "You're playing Rick. You don't have Rick's talent. You're not Rick."
Yeah.
Rick, I said, "Just be yourself. You don't have to coach like Rick. You like something he does? Fantastic. There's only one Rick Pitino, and he's one of the greats of all time." And that's the biggest thing I can encourage coaches is don't try to be Chris Beard. Don't try to be anyone. Be who you are. Don't try to be Popovich or anything. I just be who you are, and guess what? And it's going to be fine. But coach the kids with love. Have patience with them. But my number one thing at every level is to be a great teacher.
Mm.
Be a great teacher of the game. And I always say, if your team is not doing well, don't blame the players. It comes right back to you that you didn't teach well enough.
Yeah.
Not that you didn't play well. So you might have picked the wrong style of play for your team, etc. But that's my big thing is, and that I always say that when I learned this at universities, when I was working in college for years, is that all these professors that when they have your players in class, they have no problem giving them a D or an F. Okay, if they don't learn, but then they come to your game And if one player doesn't know a play, all of a sudden they say you're a terrible coach. But when my players got a D, a C, D, or F in your class, you're a great teacher. They're bad students. They flip it though when now they come to see me play. They say, bad coach, good players. And so I always say every player that you have, high school, college, or pro, has to get an A in your class.
Wow.
That's coaching.
Mm.
And I found that to be, I put the onus on the coach as opposed to the kids.
Yeah. Jocko Willick's book, Extreme Ownership. That was the thing that when I'm going through that and he's meeting with all of these CEOs of different companies, the what would seem like good reasons these CEOs were coming up with why things were going wrong, and the way that Jocko would just turn it right back around. And that is, it's a good mantra for us. Whatever happens wrong in our program, it's our fault. And then it's also up to us, though, to look for solutions, maybe ask others for help. But I love that.
Matt, one of the really cool things that I've done the last 15 years is I consult with corporations. I have some great clients, some of the biggest hospitality companies in the world. And when I go to consult with them and I go and sit in their meetings, I watch them in their meetings. And the one thing that became very universal at the top 100 companies is they would meet, and every meeting was a minimum of 1 hour long, sometimes two. And the only thing that ever was solved pretty much consistently out of every corporate meeting I went to is they planned and announced when the next meeting would be. Okay. Nothing got done. And then if they had 3 months later a meeting and sales were down, they blamed or fired the guy that was the sales manager. No responsibility on the guy that was in charge. And so I said to them one day, they said, the CEO of the company, and it's such a big company, I can't tell you. He said, Brendan, what are your observations? I said, how many meetings you guys have in a year at your place? And he goes, oh, 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 a week, per 2 to 3 a week per employee, 50, 48 weeks, probably 100, 150 meetings. I said, you know how many meetings I have as an NBA coach? 2,700 a year. 2,700 a year. I said, but let me tell you something. Shit gets done in my meetings. Okay. My meetings last from 1 minute to 3 minutes, 30-second timeouts, halftime talks, pre-game talk. I said, those are my meetings. And guess what? There might be 20,000 people in the stands. And guess what? When we come out of there, I have changed personnel. I have maybe changed strategy. I have motivated. And guess what? 20,000 people will say, that's a good manager. That's a good leader, or he's not. But I do that 14 times a game. I never looked at it that way. So I said, I was with a client yesterday, and he said, I'm having trouble managing everything in my new role. I said, how many meetings are you having? He said, 5, 6, 7 a day. I said, try having meetings, and the longest it can last is 3 minutes. And tell them what the hell you want done, and tell them, go get it done. I said, you have to have great clarity, and you have to define what you want done, and then hold them accountable to it. He said, I've never heard anything like it. He called me and wanted to tell me that it's just changed everything for him. Now he, instead of going home with his head between his legs and exhausted, he now says, I'm doing much more work because I'm doing these things much shorter and quicker. So the things we do are really what's important.
What's up, Coach? Are you looking for a way to elevate your off-season skill development? Well, look no further. With the Bology app, you can build a workout with our library or create your own content. Send that workout to your players, and then your players complete the workout by recording their session on their phones. You can monitor and encourage competition with our leaderboards for every workout. Bology offers player development solutions in the palm of your hands. Get your team started today by going to Bology.com for more info.
You nailed it with clarity. And as a coach, how do you gain clarity with the style of play that you want to have, the culture that you'd like to have? Because a danger, in my opinion, is changing things up every day from day to day, almost like completely different directions where there doesn't seem to be any common thread throughout. So how do you gain clarity?
Yeah, first of all, you have to evaluate properly. You got to know who the heck's on your team and what they can do and can't do. You can't say, hey, I want to coach just like Coach K. And then you don't have any athletes and they can't defend and all that. You gotta coach based. Someone said, what system do I run? I don't run any system. I coach a style of play based on my talent. Now I know every style of play possible, so I will put that. Now, if you said to me, generalize what you want to do, I use a very highly intensive pick and roll offense. Kevin Eastman and I met teaching him the pick and roll that he wanted me to teach him. So, 15, 20 years ago, that's how we met, and he said, can I have an hour of your time? Next thing you know, we were in a conference room for 8 hours. All right. It was the most fun I've ever had. 6 months later, he was assistant with the Boston Celtics. Because I called Doc Rivers and said, this is the best guy I've ever had ask me questions.
Wow.
Doc Ireland. But Kevin, but I have a style of play. I like to play multiple defenses. I like to use 10 players a quarter, believe it or not, because I found that's how UB did it, that we can keep guys highly engaged if we play them. Okay. And now some guys might play like even when we were coaching Atlanta Hawks, some guys played 32 minutes, some guys played 16. Certain nights, some guy played 22 and the starter played 26, but it was based on their performance, and I think the more guys, and every Piston team, we played 9 players, so I think that's a good thing if you can do that, if, barring injuries and all that. But even if you don't have talent on that second unit, just to give those kids a chance to, they work hard and stuff, especially at the high school level. But, I just think, so that's my thing there. But I really want those kids to be tough. I want them to, I always center our stuff defensively first. And, and then believe it or not, probably have the shortest practices of all time.
Just like your meetings.
Yep. I just believe that some coaches would go 2.5, 3 hours of practice and stuff like that, and almost beat the kids into the ground. And one of the things that I learned really from Chuck Daly was, what we did is we kind of formulated a philosophy together when we worked together that evolved, that, we changed the way shell defense was done. Every coach that I had ever played for or worked for, 4-on-4 shell, right? Might be the biggest crock of what of all time, because the last time I looked, there's 5 guys out there and no one is at 2 guards and 2 guys in the corner anymore like we used to teach it. So now everyone's 1 guard front, middle ball screen, 2 shooters in the corner. The 2 guys in the corner had never been down there in our shell drills. They always been out front. So what Chuck and I did is we then took the best plays in the NBA, and we took the very best plays for the 30 teams, and we made those plays the shell drills. So instead of teaching, jump to the ball, we actually had them play against the best plays, so that by the time we played a team, our scouts were so quick. Our guys were running the triangle all year preparing for the Bulls. And Tex Winter would get so mad at me, and just to make Tex upset, I love to get under him. He would He was it was almost mean.
Almost.
We put almost but we didn't like them and they didn't like us. So
Yeah.
we put in the triangle as an offense for the Pistons because my guys were so darn smart. And Tex sees me and he goes, "You're bastardizing the triangle, what just like Jordan and Pippen do. You got Isaiah and those guys doing." And I'll tell you what, we ran it good, boy. We really ran it good. And so literally when we were going to play the Bulls, my shoot around was there was we didn't even have to go over anything on there. That was it. They knew it. And but we were prepared and they were confident. And that's what we did. So we did that. Then Chuck had something, and I teach this now for the last 10 years at all the clinics I do. We call it controlled scrimmage, Matt. And what it is, and it works I teach it to every high school coach because every high school coach spends 20, 30 minutes on offense, 20, 30 minutes on defense, on our fast break, our transition defense. Oh, don't forget transition defense. Our out of bounds plays, how to defend out of bounds, our zone defense, our man defense. What we did is we said, okay, we're going to start the ball anywhere we want. It could be half court, it could be side out of bounds, it could be underneath out of bounds, it could be full court and implement a press. And the rules were very simple. One team has the ball, the first team to score 2 baskets, that game is over. And we would play for 30 minutes. But we would cover, I would just say, okay, I would call out our play. The other team heard what I was calling it. They knew the play. We had to execute it versus the team that knew it. This is not football. We're not having a huddle like all my college coaching friends. They all have huddles now. They're drawing up secret plays. Meanwhile, the game's supposed to be going up and down. You're taking, and you're doing a Nick Saban huddle, and, so all of a sudden we do that. Then we'll say, okay, side out of bounds. Here we go. Ball's in. We get a shot. Make or miss. Fast break back. Make or miss. Fast break back. First team to score 2 baskets. All of a sudden we got conditioning going, we got transition offense, we got transition defense, but we have execution and we got our defense in. What we taught was that you're teaching when you only have to score 2 baskets to win, that each possession is valuable and making good decisions. If you just put 10 minutes on the clock, the ball's flying all over the gym. And at the end of 10 minutes, the score is 4-3, But man, I'll tell you what, we play this, and I'll tell you, we did this at our first championship in '89. And I'll tell you what, we kept sweeping each team in the playoffs. So we would have a week off between playoff series 1 and 2. And back then you had a week off to prepare for the playoffs as opposed to a couple of days now. And so
that's a tough break.
Oh, So we would have our scrimmages every day. And we would and then before the finals, before the third round of the thing, the conference finals, we were off for 10 days. But we would do a control scrimmage every day. The second team on the Pistons for 6 weeks never lost to the first team. That's why we were the champions, because my second team was Rodman, Vinnie Johnson, a microwave, James Edwards, the best backup center in the league, John Sally, a great shot blocker. Those are my second string guys, and they just wore out Isaiah and Dumars and stuff like that. But, that's how we got good. So it gave them confidence, because a lot of times coaches only let the first team get reps. The second team, oh, you guys practice defense. That's no fun. And so it really was something, and all of a sudden our practices were never more than an hour. In February, March, April, practices 45, 50 minutes. But we had fresh legs. And that was a big thing. And we sold that to our guys, hey, and Pat Riley, who's the dearest friend to Chuck Daly and myself, he was legendary when he came to the Knicks and practicing for 2.5, 3 hours, even in the playoffs. His shoot-arounds were an hour and a half. And we would tell our players, you guys got fresh legs. Those guys in New York, they're not going to have any legs.
It sounds to me Like, because that was late 80s, early 90s. It sounds to me like you were ahead of where my high school coach, maybe practice or the thought of practice time and shell drill was. How did you guys, you said you kind of got together and you thought about that, like, but to me, within the last decade or so, it's become very popular to shorten practices and to do more with less time. But that, coach, you were doing that for a long time.
Yeah, because we knew, do you want to win the game or you want to win practice? Okay. And that was the thing. And so, you know, at the college level, you have 30 plus games. At the pro level, if a team like us that was in the all the way to the finals every year, it's 120 games. So our whole thing was we want them that if we want to play our starters 35, 36 minutes, like we could have coached LeBron now and stuff because we would have played the guys on the bench. He's the best.
Yeah.
So it's not about that, but just to help him. I remember we wanted to have Michael play in the Olympics in '92, and he had just won his second championship, and he was exhausted. He was absolutely exhausted. And Chuck told him, listen, all we're going to do is we're going to practice for 5 days in San Diego to get ready to qualify. And then I will have no practices the rest of the time. He said, sign me up. And then we had two players get hurt,
Mm.
and he had to be our point guard. Stockton broke his leg. Magic got hurt a little bit, but that's what we had to do. But you know what? He wanted to play for him.
Mm.
And, Horace Grant, when we went to Orlando, was playing there and he had missed like 30 games the year before. And when Chuck got the job, he said to Horace, he literally got at 67 years old, got on his knees and said, Horace, play for me. I'll get you through the year. And he lifted Chuck up and said, don't worry, played 82 games.
Oh, wow.
82.
Yeah.
And and if I had ever told players that were playing for us about load management, listen, hey, you're not going to play against the Bulls tonight, Isaiah, they would have said, listen, you and Chuck, you stay home. We don't need you. We're playing, okay? They would never have allowed that to happen. They're just too prideful in that. And they didn't care
Yeah.
about load management and stuff like that. And that's why Joe Dumars is running the league now, is basically said, you know what, you're going to play. You're going to play. And you know what? Oh boy, he can't say that. And you look at the results this year, it's off the charts.
Yeah.
The only players that aren't playing are severely injured players
Yeah.
that have surgeries and stuff.
I love what you said about shell drill. And it does it made me snicker because I can't tell you the handful of coaches that I've had, and either whether it's talking about culture or what makes their program special, or what a lot of times it is they go to shell drill. There's almost like a badge of honor, and again, I understand teaching principles and especially levels of play, maybe teaching them how to stand and why and where to be. But
No
once
problem
that's
with
established,
Thank you.
how often, because I love the idea of adding in actions. We knew a team in our district was going to be really ball screen heavy, and so we spent a lot of time in shell just guarding out of ball screens. And you know what happened is we became better ourselves at running ball screens.
Sure.
Because how often did you find yourself adding in actions that you were just going through in shell, but you're like, golly, that kind of works with us?
Yeah, and so we had a philosophy, if you do the same thing every single day for a whole season, it would be like asking if you were a history teacher, an English teacher, or a math teacher. You never get off the same chapter the whole year. You make them read it over and over and over. So our philosophy was every Monday in an NBA season, every Monday, if we didn't, even if we had a game, we would put in a new play or a new side, it might be a side or under out of bounds play, it might be a regular set play, it might be a defensive concept. We taught something every single Monday. 28 weeks. That's how many weeks we have in the NBA. 28 weeks regular season. And all of a sudden, what you found is they were excited. They wanted to know what we. And here's the only thing I recommend, Matt, is one of our beliefs was never teach anything unless you're 100% sure it's going to work. You put in a play, and the stuff don't work. They go, "What the heck is
credibility?"
Or you don't know what,
competence,
or you teach it wrong.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I worked with a coach that way, and all of a sudden he put in a play and he taught it wrong. And the players, because at NBA level, I don't care what their grade point average was or their SAT scores, they're smart basketball guys. And they're looking around going, "Oh man, this thing's wrong." And players are saying, "Coach, you sure that's how you want me to run that?" "Yeah, that's how no, wrong." So you make sure you do it, and boy, they get excited if you gave them something to help them win and maybe score or something like that. And so that's one of the things. So we would do it every single week during the season to keep them engaged, motivated. And again, our job is to keep them teaching them, and that's why. But if you do the same thing and never change, it's going to hurt you.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. What's the balance there, Coach, with obviously, the goal is, and there are moments that you just got to nail. I mean, like you said, when you're putting in something new, you've got that, it's almost like a job interview, almost like every day where that first impression, you got to nail it. But there's also, I think sometimes where like we are human, we're going to make mistakes, and owning that mistake in front of your team. What's the balance there? Like as far as, I mean, we're going to make mistakes. Do we just breeze past that, my way or the highway, or guys, let's say, you know what, I don't like that. We're going to do something else. What are your thoughts?
One of our sayings, we have a lot of, I call them dailyisms, but one of them was, you can't fool dogs, kids, or NBA players. Okay. And the idea was, if like when I was in LSU, I had Ben Simmons, who was by far the best player I ever saw at that age coming into the NBA.
Wow.
And so the first day I was with him, we were going to go to Australia in the summer on a tour. And I'm teaching them how to hedge on a pick and roll drill. And I'm teaching the drill that the head coach wanted. I taught it. The next day, I'm reviewing it. And Ben Simmons, who has a basketball genius IQ, says, "Coach, you said this yesterday." And I said, "You're 100% right. My fault." And I immediately said, "You're right. Thank you for pointing that out to me." We got back to the coach's locker room afterwards, and my head coach at the time, who I loved dearly, said, "Don't ever do that again." He said, "Don't ever, ever tell the player you made a mistake." I said, "Johnny, I've been doing this for X amount of years. I've been in the NBA for 35 years. I'm going to tell him every damn time I make a mistake, because otherwise I'd lose my credibility with him."
Yeah.
"Oh, you can't do that. You can't." I said, "No, you must do that. It's just the opposite. You must." Hey, I've made a lot of mistakes coaching. And you know what? Sometimes after a game, I'll say, "Hey, you know what? My philosophy is to foul when we're up 3. My philosophy is to foul so that they don't get to shoot a 3. Shame on me that I didn't stay with my beliefs." And because they all know my beliefs, and and you know what? And so every now and then you have to take responsibility, because I call it, it's not You made a mistake. I'm right. It's collective responsibility. We win, we lose together.
Yeah.
And if it's not, the coaches that when they lose, they point the fingers at their players. No respect for them, to be honest with you. Even though some of them are big name guys and stuff like that, or gals, you can't be like that. As a dad, have you ever made a mistake in raising your children? Of course, right? Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. And if you raised kids as old as my kids are, you made a lot of darn mistakes. Okay. And you know what? And they know you did. But you know what? Raise your hand.
And
How do you
what?
expect them to?
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you expect them to if you don't?
And thinking of the players, and I'm getting farther and farther away from remembering what it felt like to play, but we want our players to play courageously, to take wise chances, right, on the floor. And there has to me, that attitude, it's created in practice, the way that you respond to those mistakes, the environment that you created with that like level of trust that we're talking about. When you acknowledge that you make a mistake and you show them how to handle that, when they make a mistake, they know how to handle it. My fault, coach. Next one, I got this. We create that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. We actually teach that, and we'll say to players, when you make a mistake, there's so many players that would say, "Oh, it's my fault, my fault." No, forget that. You don't have time to do that. Just next play. And we tell the four other teammates when the guy throws the ball out of bounds and stuff, they are coached to tell him next play. Like help him get back in the game. And you, body language wise, don't react as some of my friends do when a mistake is made. They go, like, "Oh, look at my player messed up. I have nothing to do with it." No, just watch my friend Billy Donovan on the sideline with the Bulls. His players will make some of the worst plays ever. That guy never changes his expression. Eric
Man,
Spoelstra, same way.
Coach, that's hard. That's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, but it's important because you don't want to be. How about when you call a bad play and the player goes, "What are you doing? How stupid are you?" Right? We as coaches never look at
No
it the other
doubt.
way around.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we teach body language. Is so important for coach and for players. A lot of assistant coaches have terrible body language when one of their players makes a mistake. And or with a referee's bad call. Can't have it.
Man, I think that's a great action step for coaches to do, not just this time of year in the spring and summer, where it's improvement season, not just for players, but for all of us, is to go back and watch games and not necessarily what's happening in front of you, but watch yourself on the side. At our school, we utilize the 3-point shot as a weapon, not only to obviously score points, but to create the space that we want, to make the paint really open for us to get to. And so, but in order for my guys to shoot with courage, they have to know that if it's within our shot selection scale, that make or miss, I approve of that shot. It's not that they have to, I have this written down. It's not that they have to make it, but it's that they have to take it. Like that type of mentality. But what I realized is, without me saying like, make a shot, my body language was showing how I felt. So if we took a shot that is great within our shot selection scale, but we missed it, I would just slightly like kind of hunch over, or even just sit down. Coach, I didn't say quit. I love, like, as a team that shoots a higher volume of threes, I love when the parents or fans will stop shooting threes. Not if they're the right shot for us. It doesn't matter what happened in the past, but coach, when I sit down, is that me being supportive of our guys shooting with courage, or is that me being frustrated? that we haven't made more, and I'm resulting in that moment.
Frustrated.
We got to
Yeah.
watch. We got to watch ourselves.
Yeah, you're being frustrated at that because you don't want to yell. You don't want to do that, but you're saying, I'll sit my ass down here and then maybe no one will notice. But they notice that you stand up coaching all the time, so they'll notice that you sat down. Well, why did you sit down? Yeah, I mean, so I like the Steve Kerr thing that, he sits down a lot and then he stands. But if you do one or the other all the time, then when you change, one of my friends coaches standing up. Well, he's getting his butt beat by 20 in the NCAA tournament. He sat down. And so immediately I said he gave up.
Yeah.
Right. So people observe you, and well, forget the people. I could care less about them, but your players. That's the
No
ones I
doubt.
care
Those
about.
are the people I think we're talking about for
That's
sure.
the ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things you could do, little Johnny took a shot. That's one you want him to take. He's a great shooter. He's wide open. It's a good shot for Johnny. He missed it. He shot a freaking air ball. It don't matter. You know what you do? That's clap for him.
And that's what, it's kind of like, that's what I want to do. That's who I want to be. I acknowledge I'm not there yet, but it's blind spots. Like,
yeah,
if
but
you
don't clap
watch
every time
film,
one of your guys misses a shot. I don't. But if it's a good shot,
yes.
he's now and he misses it. He's maybe embarrassed, but as he runs back, you say, "Hey, good shot." That's it.
Next,
you're wide open. Keep taking that. That little encouragement, because if he hesitates the next time, he definitely will miss.
I want to value your time. The controlled scrimmage.
Yep.
I have a couple questions about that.
Sure.
Love the idea of it being a small or a short, small score. You're right. Like, one question that I get to ask coaches is, what would you do differently if you could start over? And a lot of answers are scrimmage more in practice, but not all scrimmage time is the same. And so you want to, whatever we choose to do with our hour 15, we want it to really be a value to our players and our team.
So when we started coaching, back in my day, when we weren't in season, we would go up to the playground and we would play outdoors. We'd play half court. We'd play 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 5-on-5. We had enough guys. Nowadays, players don't play.
Yeah.
Now, rich kids, they got trainers. College players, trainers. So what I'm finding now is high school, sometimes high school, but college players, pro players, they don't know how to play 5-on-5.
Mm.
So I need to have them play 5-on-5 to learn how to play 5-on-5. And none of them, there's not been a player I've seen in X number of years that in the off season, his trainer works on him on defense. So,
Coach, you try to market yourself as an individual defensive skills coach, you're going to have zero clients.
No, no clients. You have no clients. No, you're not. Your wife wouldn't even send you to. I mean, she wouldn't even send your kid there. No,
that's right.
Yeah. No, I mean, you'll be doing free lessons, and no one will show up. Probably, after the first practice. And so, I think it's important that you really teach them how to play 5-on-5. And all these college programs, they go, oh, come to our place. And great player development. Oh, just what we need. Great player development. How about great team development? Okay. Because we don't get to practice offense, defense. So, you have players that you're coaching defensively, unless you're allowed to have team camps. Are you allowed that?
Yes, sir.
In Texas?
Yep.
Okay. So if you have a team camp and you can practice, and then your high school season, that's the only time you get to practice defense at all, So, and yet you want to be a great defensive team, It's really hard to, because 8 months of the year, they're not guarding anyone.
That's true. So you played at 2. at that level, even college, but at the NBA, did you have consequences for the losing team, or was the
Absolutely.
competition just enough? Okay.
No, no. What we would do, if whatever, either when the time was over, we would keep the score, and the only score was if you got 2 points, and if you had two and I had one, it didn't matter if I had one. It didn't matter. Might as well have had none. You won, so you have one, and then at the end, we'd have them run, and let's say, for instance, you have one team that's not competing. Let's just say, and one team's won uh, 14 games, the other team's won three. Then I might have them do X amount of sprints or whatever running drills I do, maybe with a ball, even whatever, to get them running, to let them know that winning is important, but nothing painful or punishment.
Sure.
But I think there has to be. I think, and the biggest thing, and the reason I like this is because we would also call it. I think, it's important, even at the high school level, even if you have 5 good players and no one else can crack the starting lineup, that you have what I call on 9 game days, competition days. So that the reason that we do this is that we allow you to compete. And if you compete, make me play you. You compete, you get better. I'm playing you because you know what you did? You showed me that you can play. You're getting better. And so it gives them hope. And I think that's one of the great things that you need in coaching is to give hope to your team, but more importantly to the guys that don't get to play as much. And now that during the year, I can actually get better and earn playing time. So I think that's really important. The competition is one of the greatest things because a lot of kids nowadays do not want to compete. They run from competition. Portal. Things don't go well, put my name in a portal. High school, kids go to change schools
Yeah,
if they
transfer.
can.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
AAU, I don't get any shots. I'm going to play in another team the next week. And so I think it's important that we teach kids to compete and handle adversity and all that good stuff.
To everything you just said, it seems to me like having being loyalty may end up being a really valuable commodity now as a player, especially at the college level where you talked about the portal, where if you're a player that maybe didn't play a lot, but you stick around, even if they're going to bring in new guys from the portal, you knowing the system, a coach knowing that they can depend on you, I could see loyalty now being, if people say that being competitive is a skill now, or effort is a skill now that has to be taught. It's not natural. Loyalty maybe now is a skill that might really help some of these players.
Well, it's one of those qualities that everything good in life happens, whether it's a husband-wife relationship, boyfriend-girlfriend, family relationship, where people, we know people in families that are not loyal to their brothers, sisters, or mom and dad, so to teach them those things, to teach them how to be, we believe that, in mental and physical toughness, but the mental part was so important. But I think those are part of all the life lessons, Matt, that we have to teach our people, and we always said that, people say, well, how do you have a great team? And you only have a great team, not if I'm coaching it, it's about internal leadership on the team. So if your players have to be the biggest leaders, if the coach is the only leader on a team, you're probably not going to have a great team. But if you got some guys on your team, I don't care if it's high school, that really want to lead and galvanize, because there's an alpha male and there's someone that's in every group from junior high on up. And all of a sudden, if they can keep the group together by teaching and emphasizing the right things, that's that internal leadership. And if you can get those people, so when we had the great Piston teams, we had 6 leaders on the team out of 12 players. It's insane. Some were vocal, some just did the right thing. Some guys were the guys that all they would do was call out the superstars. Rodman was the best. He would tell Isaiah and them, "You ain't superstar. You're not showing up today." Now, if Chuck or I said that, we would be fired. But he told them it was okay because that was the best defensive player and rebounder in the league.
Yeah.
So they couldn't say anything to him. But that group became good because they would really police each other, right? And that's when you have a good group, a good family, etc.
Coach, before I let you go, the speed round. These are going to be quick questions that there might be some guys that have known you for 50 years, but they don't know the answers to these questions.
I might not either. Shoot,
Go
slow.
Thing,
Matt.
okay. The somewhat quick round. Here we go. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Ooh, cookies and cream.
Good one. The greatest shooter of all time?
So many of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Steph Curry.
I just got to tell you, asking you these questions, so much fun for me because like I can say it because I mean, dudes I've watched on TV or that you've been there. Like you've coached them. So anyway, if you say Curry, it's pretty much, but there are so many.
There's others that are close.
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir. That cat is the deal, man.
Yeah.
His daddy was really good too. Ooh. His dad was good.
Your favorite gym that you've ever coached in?
Wow. I'm going to mention a couple.
Okay.
Madison Square Garden, the Forum in Los Angeles, where the Lakers played, the United Center, where the Bulls played with Jordan before they built this Taj Mahal there now. I love playing in Seattle. Seattle was a great place.
Best basketball movie of all time?
Oh, I guess everyone says Hoosiers, right?
They do. 98%.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get a couple random ones out there though.
Yeah. I'll get excommunicated if I say The Last Dance, from Michael, but he's a dear friend and I coached his two kids in college. So The Last Dance was very entertaining during the pandemic for us all. So
it really was. As a fan, that was my era of 80s to 90s, my teens. And so your teams, I mean, my fondest memories with my family was sitting and watching those battles. So to relive those moments, I can't imagine as a coach. I can't imagine, but
yeah, I also like the 30 for 30 type movies. They did one on the Bad Boys. They did one on the Dream Team stuff. They were kind of cool to watch. Those.
Yeah. Texting or talking?
I love to talk. Damn it, I just love to talk.
There's a convenience, though.
Unfortunately, in business, I have to text a lot, but I enjoy the talking much more.
Yes, sir. Okay, I'm in Texas. We don't have a shot clock at high school. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Definitely should be.
And we didn't get to a question. And
should be 20, and it should be. And I think I wanted they're changing in rules.
Yes, sir.
At the high school, college level, we should have a 24-second clock, not a 24.
Because that's what the world.
Yeah. I go see a game in the Middle East, and they're playing with a 24-second clock, 8 seconds to get it across the timeline. 8, just like the NBA. I'll tell you what, and you know what? They all get it done.
Yeah.
It's not a coach's game, it's a player's game. Unfortunately, the US coaches have everything asked backwards and they think the game was invented for them. The college game is the only group in the world, men's college basketball, that doesn't play 4 quarters, that doesn't advance the ball in the last minute of play. Even our dear women do that at the collegiate level. But what the great thing about basketball is it's a worldwide game. The dream team helped that come along. It's the second most popular game to football, soccer
That's
football,
right.
in the world, and the game is just caught on everywhere. And and so we need to have our players. And every kid, if I go, every team I go in and talk to, college team, men or women, I say, would you like to play professionally when you're done in college? It's not, it's 100%. They all do. So if that's what the goal is, it'd be like going at your high school at Grapevine and saying, how many of you kids want to go to college when you're done? And if no one raised their hand, you'd have a rough job. But many of them raised their hand, almost all, I'm sure. And not that that's a requirement by any means, because I think college is very overrated, frankly, of what's being taught.
Mhm.
But every kid wants to be a pro. So why don't we at least help them by teaching them the game that the pros play?
Well, a guy around here calls transferable skills, teaching them things that will allow them to play at that next level. And I think you kind of answered it, but what is holding back not just the states, because you get the we can't afford it. I
Oh,
don't know. The budgets.
somehow we managed to get them out there for football. Somehow we managed that.
In Texas, you're telling me you go to Allen High School and you see the stadium that is bigger than most D1 colleges. But anyway,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
what is holding college back? What is hold? I've always wondered.
It's the ego of the coaches. Coaches make the rules in college, at the D1, D2, D3 level, and I think the same thing for most state associations. If coaches in football coaches want to put a rule in, guess what? It's put in. Okay, it's the same thing in basketball, but they think the game is about them and their record and how they coach. It's not. It's for the kids, right? And that's the biggest problem.
Your favorite holiday?
Whew. Boy, I like them all, but I, I'm a Christmas, Thanksgiving guy, probably. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you said this, but you're up 3 on defense with 5 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
I would definitely foul.
Yeah. What made you decide that?
I got beat. I'm a quick learner. Nah,
I got beat one time, and
mama didn't raise no dummy, and it just takes one time, and what's percentage wise, analytically, and all that, and some guys won't do it, and Tony Bennett's one of my dearest friends at the University of Virginia, and Kevin Keats is coaching in the Final Four because Tony wouldn't foul. He had 3 timeouts. And didn't take one to tell his team foul. And Tony is one of the top coaches at any level in the world.
Yeah.
But, that's just, that's just me, and Kevin would not have been in the tournament if he had been fouled.
Yeah. Besides Coach Eastman's book, what book would you give someone?
Ooh, so many.
Yeah.
So many. Any John Gordon book. Any John Maxwell book. Those guys are just so smart. My fellow Texan friend, Damon West, from just outside Beaumont, he's the guy who wrote The Coffee Bean, and he is one of the greats of all time of understanding people. But those are pretty much the ones that I like the most.
Last one, your favorite place to travel?
Ooh. Oh boy, it's so hard. It really is, but in our country, still to Florida, because I lived there, my son's there, grandson. The weather's usually great. Outside the U.S., I love Europe, especially Italy. I'm dying to go to Dubai, and I love Australia, especially Sydney.
Nice.
Special place. Been to China like 15 times, but that's all I'll tell you. I've been there 15 times, and I'm still here to talk about it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Coach, I've had the pleasure of getting to do this podcast for almost 3 years.
Great.
But this was a bucket list time for me to get to have with you. I've listened to Coaching You podcast for years. And so you and along with your guests have shaped, me in a lot of ways. Thank you so much for what you've done for the game the last 50 years, but what you continue to do and your quest to affect so many lives as you can. This was just an honor for me, Coach.
Oh, Matt, thanks. I follow you on social media, and I was also honored when you asked and everything. And a couple of my friends that had been on with you said, he's a good guy. Go on with him. And I said, thank God I like both of them. So, but you really are, and I love your mission of what you're trying to do, and I'm thankful that the kids have you as a coach, because it's hard to find great coaches that care so much about young people, and so thank you.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.